Hi everyone, welcome to the part 2 tutorial Mesh Web Blueprint for Archviz. In the first part video, we have created the concept 1 from scratch and also discussed the reason for creating the concept 2. Without wasting time, let's jump in. For the concept 2, let's see the event graph logic. The logic 1 and logic 2 is same as concept 1. There is a bit change in the logic 3. Instead of existing mesh, I am taking the visibility control of the new mesh 1, mesh 2, mesh 3 and mesh 4, and I am controlling the visibility. Additionally, we are creating logic 4 to set the visibility status of each mesh, and the fifth logic is to identify the current selection using the if condition. Let's go and see in detail. I am in UV5 project with the new empty level as it supports dynamic lighting, and I have few static mesh preloaded in the projects for this tutorial. Go to the content browser, right click, blueprint class, and select actor and rename it as BP Mesh Swap 2. Open the blueprint and you will see the billboard. To get rid of the billboard, go to components, add scene components. Drag and drop the scene components to the root. Then add static mesh component and rename it as mesh 1. Go to the details, load any static mesh as our first mesh. Duplicate the static mesh component and rename it as mesh 2. And do the same for 3 and 4. Add text and rename as user text. Move it in front of the static mesh so that the user can see the text. Go to details and edit the content as press F and turn off the visibility. Add box collision and scale it bigger as per the requirement. Now drag and drop the blueprint in the level and position it for testing. Go to blueprint, viewport and select the box collision. Go to details, under event, click begin overlap and do the same for event end overlap as well. Let's create the first logic like concept 1. Go to event graph, on component begin overlap, enable input, link get player controller and set visibility for user text. Moving on to the second logic, go to event graph, on component in overlap, disable the input Connect the player controller. Set the guide text visibility as off. Let's test it. Play. Player comes in and the gate text pops up. Player moving back and text turning off. Perfect. Moving on to the third logic. Go to event graph. Right click. F. Select F. Connect multi-gate. We need looping, so turn on loop. Set the index as 0 and add additional 2 pins. Now we need to control the visibility for all the meshes. Set visibility and duplicate the node. Connect mesh 1 and enable the visibility in first node and turn off the visibility in the second node. Go to variables, components, drag the mesh 2 getter and do the same for mesh 3 and mesh 4. Now duplicate the visibility node for other meshes as well. For the first node, mesh 1 is enabled and connect the mesh 2, 3 and 4 to the second node and turn off the visibility. Then connect the mesh 2 in the first node and connect the remaining meshes to the second node and do the same for remaining meshes. Let's test it. Play. Player comes in. Press F again and swapping works perfect. Go to event graph. And now we need to create few variables to control our visibility and movement in the instance. Add new variable and rename it as mesh1 transform and change the variable type as transform and make it visible to public. Add new variable called mesh1 visibility and change the variable to boolean. Again, add the same for mesh 2. Make a note that the sequence should be in this order. Let's check it in the editor. Select the blueprint, go to Details tab, and now we can see all the controls in the Details tab. Perfect.
Now repeat the same process for mesh 3 and mesh 4. While creating, please create in a sequence. We cannot change the sequence on the later stage. Moving on to logic 4. In this logic, we need to set the boolean as per the current mesh choices. Drag and drop mesh 1 and select set boolean and do the same for all the meshes. Connect all the nodes to the first selection. Duplicate and do the same for all the remaining meshes. If I am in the mesh 1 selection, I need to set the boolean as true for mesh 1 and set the false for remaining meshes. If I am in the second selection mesh 2, need to set mesh 2 boolean as true and remaining mesh boolean as false. Do the same for all the meshes. Now the logic 4 remembers the boolean status for each mesh selections. Separate the logic 3 and logic 4 and move it further to proceed to the fifth logic. When the player moves back and comes in again and enable the input, then the blueprint need to remember the last selection set by the user. I am taking branch and set the basic if condition. So when the mesh 1 boolean is true, set the mesh 1 visibility as on, and if the boolean status is false, then take the branch and check the next mesh 02 boolean. Then again, when the mesh 2 boolean is true, set the mesh 2 visibility as on, and if the boolean status is false, then take the branch and check the next mesh 3 boolean. And do the same for all mesh boolean and save it as logic 5. Go to viewport and keep the mesh 1 visibility on and turn off the remaining mesh visibility. Let's test it. Play. Now I can see only the mesh 1 and toggle the options. Moving back and swapping is disabled. Perfect. Now go to construction script. Whatever the nodes and variables we are connecting with the construction script, it will add the functionality in its instance. We are going to enable the additional functionality that we discussed during the requirements. First, select set visibility for mesh 1. And connect the mesh 1 visibility boolean with the node. Then add local transform and connect the mesh 1 transform variable with the node. This node will keep the current position of the blueprint as X and add the additional offset like x plus y so that we can control the position, rotation and scale of each static mesh separately. Okay, let's test mesh 1 functionality in the level. Go to details and enable mesh 1 visibility. It's working fine. Let's test a position. Then rotation. Then scale. The big advantage is whatever the modifications done in the instance, it stays in that instance itself. And we can see the changes affected in the runtime as well. Let's add the same functionality for all the mesh options. Let's go and test it. Yes, it works perfect. Now go to the viewport and swap mesh 1 with another static mesh inside the blueprint. Working fine. That's it. Now we have created the concept to mesh swap blueprint and it is ready for our usage. The only issue is the increase in the poly count as we have 4 meshes inside the blueprint at any point of time. But for Archviz scenario, we focus more on the reusage and flexibility rather than the poly count. Hope this tutorial might be useful for you in your Archviz projects. Thanks for your time.